Hey guys, and welcome to episode 12 of the Mise-En-Sesh podcast. My name is George. His name is Elliot, and
We're back.
we haven't filmed anything for a couple of weeks. Just schedules not lining
Basically,
up.
there was a wage dispute and
Here
George
we are.
boycotted the podcast.
Yeah, right. If you're not even willing to pay me 10 grand an episode, then where's the point? I mean, God, I wish it was that easy to make money off podcasts. It's just like you just say, I want this amount of money.
Well, that's where where this week's sponsor comes into the conversation. That
the point where we turn around and say this episode is sponsored by insert brand here. At that point, we should probably start taking it relatively seriously.
Yeah, the day you can say this week's sponsor and have it not be like, a joke.
Yeah, that's when you've made it. But yeah. So one of the topics I wanted to talk about today is something we've touched on, I want to say briefly, in the past, which is there are a handful of films that I've seen, and there's probably countless others that like viewers can suggest or whatever, where once you've seen it, you cannot watch it in the same way ever again. And I think that the one that comes to mind immediately for me, or for both of us, is Shutter Island, because like we can never watch that for the first time ever again. That experience of the reveal, because it's such a big thing, and it does change the way you view the film on second watching. Like you pick up on the small details of people don't act how they should, and before it was just like, oh, it's a creepy film, and it's like, no, there's a whole other layer behind it, and it's just very clever storytelling. But there are actually a couple of others. Like I want to see off the top of your head, are there any other ones that you can think of?
Why do you have to do this to me? I mean, it's obviously like Fight Club, because we've talked about that in the chat together, in our business planning chat for this podcast. You've caught me off guard, to be honest. I can name a bunch, but I can't remember them right now because I've not been thinking about it.
Well, yeah, of the there's four that I've listed. So Shutter Island, Fight Club, Sixth Sense, and one I watched very recently, which is a relatively new one called Antebellum. And I'd be willing to bet you haven't seen that.
Well, yes, I have not seen it.
There you go. Yeah, it's the way it's explained in like the plot, sort of the way it's advertised, like the way the plot is advertised is time traveling. It's like you're presented with a slave, and then you're presented with her ancestor.
All right.
And it's sort of a story that time travels, and that's how it's presented. And I'll be honest, when I was watching it, I was like, I'm not into this, because for the first like half an hour, you are just shown slaves. Like you're shown a very much sort of like 1800s kind of, you've got the white man in power, and he's got his slaves cotton picking, and that's what you're presented with for half an hour, and then all of a sudden it just cuts to the same actress in present day, and I was like, right, this is so jarring. I'm so lost. I have no idea what's happening. I mean, at this point, I started to shut off. But I mean, spoilers. If you wanted to watch the film, like I won't say anything else. Like it's your 3-second warning.
I'm sorry, it's okay. You can say.
But pretty much the way the story is presented to you is in a non-linear order.
Right.
Because when it cuts to the woman in modern day New York, linearly, that's right, that's the first, like the earliest point in time, because what you've watched actually takes place later in the film. Essentially what happens is this woman gets kidnapped and is put into an area which is just very, very sick in the head white men doing a role play
Oh,
of
okay.
them being slave masters to the point where if a slave misbehaves, they will literally burn them to death. They will put them in a an oven and burn them alive. And it's when you work that out, it's really sort of like I literally put my phone down because like I said, I'd zoned out, I was just on my phone. As soon as that revelation hit, I was like, oh my God, I put my phone down. Um, because I'd gone into it expecting it to be, you've got like you've got the slave and then you've got her
Yeah.
ancestor 200 years later. But then when you work out that it's the same person who's just been kidnapped, and then the slave master wakes up in the middle of the night because his phone is ringing, that's like, oh, okay, this is a lot darker
Yeah.
than I thought it was. And it is one of those ones where I wish I'd given it more of a chance off the bat. Um, but it is a good film. I
Yeah,
would
that's quite,
recommend it.
as
But
far as twists go,
yeah,
that's a pretty good twist to put into your story. But the fact that you zoned out of it as someone who is like a film nerd, no offense, uh, like that sort of maybe suggests that there was a better way to do that.
to be fair, thinking back on it, I don't think there was. I think because of the way it was
Yeah.
advertised, that's
Yeah.
what threw
Okay.
it. That's why I was confused because I was like, right, I've gone into this with the understanding that it's time travel, and then we're half an hour in, nothing's happened. Like literally nothing's happened. It's just followed this slave, like slave owner and all the slaves. And it's the fact I couldn't like it shows a woman getting dragged away and then you find out she's been killed, but you don't understand the relation between any of the characters and like they're all talking to each other like things just don't seem right. And then when you go back and watch it with the mentality of, oh, it's because they're all modern day people being thrown into this horrible scenario, it makes sense because um it's just like this character comes up and starts talking to the protagonist, and she's saying how you can help me, you out of everyone, you can help me. And it turns out the woman is a female rights activist. Like she's written books and talks about equality and stuff. Um, so it's a good film. But yeah, like you say, the fact I zoned out doesn't
I mean, perhaps it's that sort of
not it doesn't bode
highlights
well. It's
something else we could talk about. But it's sort of like how the I think we talked about a few weeks ago is like how what's more important, is it the marketing of the film or the making of the film itself? Like
oh
if
yeah,
like obviously with this particular example, I think it's quite hard to market that without also ruining the revelations. I think so. I think that's sort of why it might be a bit misleading. How you thought it might be a bit misleading, like watching advertisements and stuff for it. Because I don't think you could really market that for what it
yeah,
is without giving away what it is, and obviously that is the
without
thing. So
giving
that's a
away the
tricky one.
twist.
It's a good
Yeah,
twist
like
though. It's like it's a
it is a good like I it did throw me because I was suddenly like, oh damn. Um, but I'm just trying to think. You could easily advertise that in terms of just comp- like a plot line of comparing the life of a woman in the 1800s, a black woman in the 1800s, to uh like say a black woman in modern day, comparing those lives and seeing the terrors that they're both
yeah.
presented with like that could be a way to do it. But saying time traveling slavery across ancestors, like that's not.
It's just simply
I don't
not
know.
what
Like
happened.
thinking
But
back,
again, it's like hard to say.
no, thinking back to the trailer I saw, it didn't seem like that. But then when the idea of time traveling slavery was put into my head, I was like, what? No, okay, that's yeah. But no, yeah, I'd recommend it if you haven't seen it, do go watch it. Honestly, like I can't do it justice. Um, it's a good film. Yeah, but yeah, like I say, it is one of those ones where once you know the twist, you can't watch it in the same way because I'm never gonna have that oh
Yeah.
damn moment where I put my phone down again because I
But I
know
mean,
what's
that is the
happening.
mark of a good twist, though, as well. Is when it's irreversible to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like
there's lots of films that try and do
I think
like a twist, and it's like, oh, okay, that happened, but it doesn't really change the way you watch the rest of the film. It's just like something that's revealed, and you're like, oh, okay. But then there's some films like that one, for example, where it's like it fundamentally changes the way that you understand and the way that you view everything there is on the screen.
yeah, definitely. I think well the big name that comes to mind when I think of like plot twists is M Night. Is it Shyamalan or Shyamalan?
Whatever you
I
feel
can't
like.
remember how it's pronounced. However you feel in the moment. But obviously Sixth Sense, I think that was the first time I was aware of a plot twist. Because I went into that,
Yeah,
is the light flickering. I went into that not knowing. Um, because it was before all of like it was before the internet really sort of you had the spoiler culture. So I watched that with like a fresh viewing experience. And then not obviously you don't pick up on the small details. Um, I mean, if you don't know the twist of Sixth Sense, then I mean, spoiler warning. But the main character is a ghost, and he is the whole time. And the fact that there's such subtle things of like he never actually has a conversation with anyone outside of the young boy who can see dead people. He never interacts with anything. Um, and it's just the small things where you don't notice it at
yeah.
first. It's just there are coincidences as to why things don't happen. So it's like he goes to open a door and he's like, "Ah, okay, I can't find the key, so I can't get in there." He goes to have a conversation with his wife, but she is upset because he's not there. Like she couldn't enjoy her evening because he wasn't there. So you're under the impression that he's late for an anniversary or something, whereas no, in reality, she's mourning him. Um, and it's just all these small things, and it's very, very clever storytelling. But then you can't appreciate it in the same way ever again because going into it, you see the fact, oh, he's interacted with that door, but he can't do anything because he's not alive. Like he's not having a chat with her; she's just having a chat
Which is
openly. Like,
precisely why I have never actually watched The Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense myself. Like, I know it's probably a good film, and um, I'd enjoy watching it, but it's just it was spoiled for me. Like, the plot twist of Sixth Sense was spoiled for me before I even really knew the film existed. Like, I knew the spoiler before I knew the film,
yeah,
so it was like, obviously it's one of those films that's quite highly rated amongst most people, and it's like its marquee moment, the apex of that film. It was ruined for me long before I even knew the film existed. Like, it was just one of those plot
yeah,
twists that it's like, you just see it, you referenced and talked about all the time. So it's like, once that happened, I sort of, it's a similar thing to a lot of films. It's like, it's why I never watched Endgame until like a month ago, because I knew what happened because it was spoiled for me before I got a chance to see it. So I was just like, all right, that happens.
yeah,
Like, I can't watch it and like experience the story because I know, no pun intended, but I know what the end game is. Like, I know that everything that leading up, I know
yeah.
everything leading up to that final moment where Tony Stark snaps his fingers, spoiler alert, and infinitely gauntlets himself into oblivion. Like, I know everything that happens in that film leads up to that moment, and I'm like, that is the, that is it. So it's like, for a long time I just didn't bother watching it. I was like, oh, I know how's it going to end, and I did sort of feel that way when I was watching it as well. I was like, when it was like when I saw Hulk doing it, like Holly was watching and she was like, oh no, he's gonna, and I was like, he's gonna be fine. Tony's gonna do it later. It's gonna be fine. Like, I obviously didn't say that to her because I spoiled it to her, but in my head I was
Yeah,
like, oh, I'll be fine. And like, I already knew which characters made it to the end. I didn't know exactly how, but I knew which characters, didn't make it to the end fight. So when, for example, like it was Black Widow and what's his face, Hawkeye. I was like, this would be great, but I know.
they've announced the Hawkeye show. Right. Well, that's the thing though, because they announced the Black Widow film. So
I mean, even announcements aside, I
Like,
wasn't aware of either of the shows or films before I watched it, but
oh
I
really?
knew from seeing like bits of the film referenced or talked about, or like just little snippets and stuff on social media, that I knew that, I knew that, like, I knew who died before I watched it. So I was just like, it takes all the like one when you've had the plot twist spoiled for you, it just sort of take all the wind out of the sails, because you just sort of watch it and you can't be on the edge of your seat. You can't really be like, oh god, I hope they make it. You're just like, yeah. You just find yourself waiting for the
Okay.
moment. Like, I can still appreciate, like, I still appreciated the film. I enjoyed watching the film, but I didn't like,
Mm.
compared to watching that, say, like when I watched Infinity War. I sort of went into that a bit blind because I had skipped a bunch of the Marvel films because there was so many coming out. I couldn't bother to watch them all. But I went into the cinema to watch Infinity War, not knowing a whole lot about what had just happened, but I knew enough to piece things together. And like Infinity War, I
Mm.
was watching that and I was like, ah, ah, oh crap, oh, wait, they lose? What? No, surely. I was like, whoa. But by the time Endgame came out, it was spoiled for me so quick. I was like, oh, okay,
See, that's the thing, because I saw it midnight release because I didn't
yeah,
want any risk of it being spoiled. So I was among the first to see it. Um, but I guess you could say, like with horror films, once you've seen a horror film, going back into it, because the jump scares are so memorable,
yeah,
you see it coming. Because like m most horror films, I can see a jump scare coming because you've got the false build up where it's like the music builds, tension's
very
building,
textbook.
and they open the door and nothing's there,
Yeah.
and then they turn around and boom, jump scare. And it's very textbook. Like once you know the formula, you see
Yeah,
it coming a
which is
mile
why
off.
the Insidious jump scare with the Darth Maul looking dude behind the guy's face, behind the guy's head,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that was like, that's the only jump scare that I really respect, because that was a
Because there's no build up.
genuinely good jump scare. It wasn't like, hello, oh okay, we're no, oh shit, no, it was like they're just sat having a conversation. All of a sudden, there's a demon over his shoulder. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Like,
The first two. What was it? There's four of them now, isn't there? Because the first two were good. The first one was amazing. The second one was air. The third one was just all right. Okay, I think we
yeah.
need to stop here. And the fourth one is no. All right, you're just
Yeah,
being
see
a
that
dead
that's the
horse now.
thing. Like, I suppose it goes for any kind of film or show, to be honest. But it's like, especially with horror films, it's like, if you make a really good horror film, it's hard to make a really genuinely good horror film, because the tropes of that genre
Oh
are
yeah.
so sort of like churned out and are sort of like predictable. Um,
Mm.
but like, I remember when Paranormal Activity came out, that was lightning in a bottle. That first Paranormal Activity film, everyone went crazy for it, and then they made like
Oh
seven
yeah.
more. So now it's like you watch one of those films and you're just like, yeah,
Well, it's the fact they because I only watched like the first one, and then I just never really watched it because I was like, I mean, it's fun and all,
yeah,
but once
it's
you've seen
basically
it,
the
like
same
you've
thing.
seen it, whatever. But I watched a breakdown of the story where it was like none of the waffle or whatever. It's
Yeah,
literally just the story plots you needed to know in order to understand. There's a cult in it. There's time travel. There's just all of like crossovers. What the hell is happening? This was literally just people
yeah.
filming a ghost
Well, I
in the
mean,
house. The ghost got
that's the
some weird
result
name like Billy or
of like
something. Like,
studios stepping in and be like, okay, because I think the first Paranormal Activity film, they made it for like, how, I think it was like in the thousands. They made it. I think it was like in the teen
yeah,
thousands. I think, I don't know, lie to the people, but I'm pretty sure it was very cheap. Yeah,
fifteen
very
thousand
cheap to make,
US dollars. Yeah,
and it made like 100 and whatever million at box office.
hundred ninety
So if
three
you're a
point
studio
four
executive and
million.
you're sat there with your pipe and your monocle, and you think, if we can put in 50, if we get 100 and something million per 15,000, let's make as many of these as we possibly can. Another one, and obviously people are going to come back and watch because the first one was genuinely very good. But the way it expands, like you said, like there's time travel, there's cults, and there's all this stuff going on. That's just a byproduct of people sitting around a table in a boardroom somewhere thinking, okay, right, how can we expand it into something new? Because the original premise is so simple. It's
Yeah,
just a couple who have a ghost problem in the house, and they're just setting up cameras to try and capture it. That's all it is. That's as pretty much
Mm.
as simple as it gets for like a ghost thing. And when you try and expand it beyond that, you lose people. Like you, for example, you lose people because it's like you just make it into something that it's not.
Yeah, definitely. Because I don't know if you've seen it. It's a horror comedy. It's called Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Okay.
Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and it's Alan Tudyk. Tudyk, or
I thought
whatever,
you
I
was
can't
going to say
remember his
Alan
name.
Turing for a second there.
Um, yeah, not quite. But it's a piss take of the sort of hillbilly horror thing, where it's
All right.
teens
Yeah.
in the woods and they're getting hunted
Yeah.
by some hillbillies. I think it's meant to be
Okay.
Texas
Yeah.
Chainsaw kind of thing. Um, but it reverses it, so it's you focus on the two hillbillies, who between them have got about three brain cells. But they're these lovable like buffoons, and then these like teens have come in. They're like, oh, like look at these guys, like they're so disgusting from the like like 40 grand
Yeah.
4x4 whatever. And they come in. They're like, oh yeah, we'll spend a week camping in the woods, and it's just essentially it is a shitstorm, but it's amazing. Like it's one of my favorite films, and
Sorry to
I've
interrupt. My
always wanted a
camera's just
sequel.
died, and it's frozen my
Your camera's
frame
just died.
in the least pleasing way. I don't know if it froze it on Skype, but it froze it on the OBS when I was
You were
touching my
touching your
face. So,
beard. That's very
so
funny.
I've got a backup battery. You can keep talking. I'll just stick a backup battery in and get myself back online.
Well, pretty much. I always wanted a sequel, and there were talks of one in the works. And then a few years ago, like the actors were asked, like, why is there no sequel? Like, was there never a script written? And they were like, no, there was a script, and it got all the way through to us, and we were presented with the script, and then we looked at it and went, no, this is horrible. Like, this is not. It's a totally different story from what we've shown before, so we don't want to do it. And I totally
Oh yeah,
respect the guys for that because it would be so easy to just make the film, take the paycheck, and then go,
yeah.
yeah,
But
we
like,
didn't want to
if
do
you
it,
think
but
if you've made something and then someone was like, we want to make a sequel, blah blah blah, and like, in order to what? Because it's different. Like, say if you made something you wasn't that keen on or whatever, you just sort of made it because it was a job, and then it's like, oh, I'll make another one. You're like, oh no, thanks. But when you've like made something yourself, it's like naturally like I think
yeah,
everyone sort of wants to keep whatever their project is going for as long as possible. So it takes
oh yeah,
a lot of self awareness and a lot of integrity to sort of be like, no, this isn't good enough to like let's not do this.
yeah,
It's like
definitely.
every student film ends in a cliffhanger because oh there's going to be a sequel. It's a setup for a feature. Like everyone wants to keep whatever idea. Like people get an idea and they're like, okay, let's set it up in a way that it could keep going forever and ever and ever. And I do this, and I'm sure we all do this. They're like,
Oh yeah. See, that's why I think that the best stories are the ones where they're closed on themselves. They don't leave anything
like
open, and then
the
like you could have sequels come off it where they find something. It's like, oh, we could explain or what, like we could explain that away, but like, oh, but this wasn't actually the real ending, and like they
yeah
tack a sequel on, and it sometimes works, most of the time it doesn't. But it's like the film exists on its own. It wasn't intended to have sequels, so
yeah
that's why it works. But like the worst case scenario is you do a film and you leave it open ended and then you never get that sequel. That is the worst possible scenario because you've expected the film to do so well
yeah
and then you don't get the backing to do another one. It's like that's the worst thing I think for a writer, director,
yeah
like just studios in general. I hate it.
yeah like the like I feel like purposefully making a film or whatever to well or it goes for TV shows as well. Like purposefully leaving the final episode or the end of the film like suggesting a sequel is like, I don't know. It's just, it takes away from like the actual core story you're trying to tell. I was watching a video on this a while ago. I say a while ago, like maybe last week. It was talking about like how TV shows, um, how TV shows have so much pressure to end in the right way, and it was talking about how like the end of
Yeah.
Breaking Bad. I still, have you even seen the Breaking Bad all the way through that series? Yeah.
I know the ending.
Like the
Yeah.
ending of that was like pretty much a perfect ending to a series because like, basically this video essay I was watching, it was like there's two ways you can end it. You can end it where you give everyone closure, or you can just end it. I can't remember what the other word he used, but the other word that was used, but it was like you can give them closure or you can just end it. So and you just and that's it. It's over. And the two examples that they compared, it was like Breaking Bad because Walter he gets his money to his kids, via Gretchen and Elliot. He lets Jesse go. He doesn't make good with his wife or ex-wife Skylar, but he sort of confesses that he was doing all this stuff for himself, not for the family. Like he sort of comes to terms with the monster that he became, and yeah, like he ends up dying on the floor after saving Jesse, and his character, everything that the story has been through is all concluded. It's a really satisfying way to end. There's a little bit of a cliffhanger because you don't know what happens to Jesse afterwards, but obviously that's where El Camino comes in, unfortunately. And then the contrast to that was like The Sopranos, where you have the. Are you aware of the ending of Sopranos?
Where you hear the door open, he
Yeah,
looks
like
up, and it just cuts to
it's
black.
it's him. He's watching people come
Yeah.
into the bar, into the diner that he's in, like his family, his wife, or whatever, and then it just cuts to black, and that's it. It's over. Like it was the two extremes. So
Well, I think with The Sopranos, I haven't seen the show, but I've seen this. I've seen
yeah,
that clip countless times, and it's he's aware that someone's out to try and kill him or
yeah. So
something, and he's like
basically, it
just
was like
expecting them to walk in.
they cut it to black, and it just sort of leaves it open to interpretation. Like obviously, it's presented. The final few shots are presented in a way where like someone's going to come in and hit him. Whack, assassinate. For those who aren't
Yeah.
familiar with gangster lingo like I am. Um, but then it's like because it
Yes,
cuts
of
to black before
course.
you see anything happen, you're like, did he get hit
Yeah.
or did he not? Did he just live off his days and just go old, or did he get hit, or was it just his anxiety, his paranoia from the life that he's led, that he was sat there and thinking, you know, like that's a really good way to end a show as well because it leaves it open, not for a sequel necessarily, but it leaves it open for fans to think about, and you can sort of, I think the more you know the character and the story, the more educated you are into what actually would happen after that cut to black. But it's like the story is over
Yeah.
at that point. If you want to talk about it anymore with your friends, go for it. But the story is over at that point.
Well, show I'd compare that to actually is
No.
Chuck. I don't know if you've seen that. We might have discussed it already. Because the ending of that is so the main character and his wife are sitting on a beach, and the whole thing of like the last couple of episodes is the wife has her memory erased because she's like a super
All right.
spy, and her original assignment was to gain the trust of the main character, her husband, um, to like get intel off him. Um, but then obviously they get married and like they're planning a life together, and she has her memory erased, and he has a choice where he can either save the day, he can defuse a bomb, or he can get her memories back. There's a whole explanation behind it, but that's the very TLDR kind of thing. Um, and he saves the day, and he's like, I can't get you your memories back. I'm so sorry. I need to do this. So obviously he thinks very selflessly. He does that, and then he says to her at some point earlier in the episode, um, or is it right? I can't remember when it is, but he says to her at some point, "Oh, someone said to me that if we actually kissed, it would bring all the memories back because you get the emotional
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
muscle
yeah,
memory kind of thing, and the whole thing. And then the final shot is her turning to him and going, "Kiss me." And they kiss on the beach. They kiss, and then it cuts to black, and you never know what happens. And it's one of those things for years. It drove me mad because I was like, I just want to know what happens. And like one of my best mates, I was talking to him about it because we both watched it. We were just like, we want to know what happens. And Zachary Levi, who played Chuck, he was constantly asked, would you like to do like a film or something to wrap it up? And he was like, yeah, I would love to. Um, but the original producers don't want to touch it. So it would be a thing where the cast would all be on board, but they need like crowdfunding. Obviously, they'd never be able to get enough money, so
yeah.
it's just not been touched. And I am
Yeah,
glad
like
they didn't
learning when
because
to just leave things alone is a really refined skill, I think.
it's one of those things. It's nice to have a solid ending. It is really nice to just be like, right, that's it. That's the end of the story. This is exactly how it ends. Have a nice day. But leaving it open ended to the point where there are so many possibilities that come off of Chuck. It's like she gets her memories back. They live happily ever after. She doesn't get her memories back, but they just form a whole new relationship. Like they just start from scratch. They get to know each other
Yeah,
again, and all of that. Or then you've got the worst case scenario where she's like, I don't feel anything. All right, see ya, and then moves off to like Germany or something. I don't know. But it leaves it open to interpretation, which is a very powerful thing because then it gets people talking.
yeah,
Because I think one of the things of of recent is WandaVision
yeah. I wasn't a fan of the way that
because
ended.
there was so much speculation. Didn't help that Paul Bettany was like, "Oh, there's this huge cameo coming," and it just wasn't. Um, Huge speculation and all that because people were like, "Oh, it's going to be this character. This is how it's going to end. This is this. This is this. This is what this shot meant. This is what this meant. This is what they're like leading up to." And it was no one predicted it correctly. No one saw it coming, which I think is good because if they'd have just done fan service, it wouldn't have ended the way it did. It would have just been like, right, there you go, let's wrap that up with a bow. But like they needed to set up the events of the upcoming Marvel films because this leads directly into the Doctor Strange
Yeah.
sequel.
See, that alone is why I enjoyed watching WandaVision the first time round. Like as I was watching it, I was enjoying it. But then since like I
Yeah.
liked the series, I enjoyed it. But then since it's ended, I no longer like it because the whole thing, and I understand this is just is what it is, but the whole thing is basically a trailer for stuff. Like it doesn't really mean like that much. Like it's like I know it's its own little story, and it's like a thing of Wanda's blur, the hex and whatnot. But like it
Yeah.
sets up like it ends with the post credit thing is Wanda projecting and stuff. That sets up the Doctor Strange thing, and then there's the sword lady.
Yeah.
I've forgotten her name. The one who Monica. That's it.
Oh,
Like
Monica.
it's and she's
Yeah.
someone talks to her about was it a mum or something, and she like looks up, and that sets up something else that's going to happen, and then
Secret Invasion.
White Vision goes off somewhere. That's not answered. It's like it just sets up
Yeah.
all these different things. It's like okay, right. So
Well, that's the thing with Falcon and Soldier. I don't
I'm
know if
watching
you're
it
up
and
to date with
I'm
that.
at the same time enjoying, but also not enjoying it. But I'll talk about that.
What
We
episode are
watched
you
the
up to?
latest. The
You've
latest.
watched what, sorry?
Like we're all the way up. Yeah.
Episode 5. So with that, I've been fluctuating between how I feel about the episode. Like each episode, I'm like, the first one, I was like, yeah, I'm in. I love it. Second episode, I was like, okay, I enjoy it. Third episode, yeah, no. Fourth episode, obviously built it up with just John Walker going mental. And then this episode, absolutely loved it because you
It
get
feels like
that.
something's at stake in this one.
You get John. Well, it's the fact you get John Walker, who is you see the fact
Yeah.
he's not okay. he's standing there in front of all his superiors, being like, "I am Captain America." They're like, "Not anymore." He's like, "I am Captain America," and they're just like, "Not, no, you're not. Like, give us back the shield." And then you get the contrast of Sam and Bucky actually having a friendship, and it's like they're doing something as rudimentary as fixing a boat, but the fact that you see them interacting how they are, like they are starting an actual friendship and not just people who have to be together. Um, but then the payoff of Bucky turns to Sam and goes, "When Steve told me what he was planning, I don't think either of us understood what it meant for a black man to wield the shield." And I think I owe you an apology. That I was like, this is incredible because it's just storytelling at its finest. And then the conversation between Sam and Isaiah was it's one of those things where obviously we won't ever experience the like we touched on this
Like
with Matt
we will never know what it's
in
like
the
to be
podcast, like the
black
racism.
in any time or place, you know. So
Yeah, but it was just that conversation was it was very powerful, I'd say, because it was this man who's been through hell. He was in prison for 30 years because of doing the exact same thing that Steve Rogers did. He went to help his friends
yeah,
and he got punished for it, whereas Steve Rogers did it and he was given a Medal of Honor. Has
yeah.
your camera just died again?
I'm out of backup batteries now, so this is just me.
Oh, damn. But yeah, it's the fact he was punished for doing exactly what Steve Rogers
Yeah, I
did.
did pick up on that.
I thought it was a great episode in general.
Yeah, like the whole like
But yeah,
series, like it's really frustrating me because it's like within one episode I could really enjoy it, and then within like the next scene I could be like, God, I hate this, because it's like, I mean, I'll talk about it. I feel like I should talk about it in more detail, like once the final episode is aired and I can have a full
yeah.
retroactive appreciation for it. But at the moment I'm just annoyed because I don't like the what's her face? Is it Carly? The super soldier.
Oh,
God,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
like
Carly.
her performance in it. I'm not sorry for saying that. Like, and I feel like they've got
Yeah,
like, it feels like there's like two teams of writers on it. There's like one team for like Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, and then there's like a B team who are like straight out of film school who write the rest of the stuff for like the minor characters or the bad characters.
I I like her character. I don't like her accent though, because I understand obviously she has to have an accent. She has to be from somewhere, but she is not intimidating when she's like, "We've lost so many people. Like, we need to do this. We need to do this," and she's got just an accent from like down the road from me.
Well, it's the
It's
thing.
like
It's
this
like
just sounds like
I
something I
don't
went
feel
to
like I'm
school with.
watching
Like,
a villain. I feel like I'm watching like it feels like they went into like a drama or like a theatre group in London and they picked the edgiest looking person and were like, "You're interesting looking. You're now the
come with
face
us.
of, or you're now the face of whatever their organisation's called." Like,
But
it's just I don't know. Again, I think we'll do a special on it once it's fully aired. But right now, I'm not enjoying it
yeah,
as much as I would like to have enjoyed it. But I will keep my mind open
yeah.
and
I understand. I understand the logic of why like her character does what she does. I get that. I just feel like the accent just isn't threatening
it's
for me.
not
I
even
don't
the
feel like there's
accent.
any
It's
threat.
not it's not the accent itself. It's just the delivery of the lines. Every sentence sounds vaguely the same. Like it's hard to get across that proper
There is a
emotion and
theory though.
tone when every sentence you say sounds basically the same.
There is a theory which I think after the last episode has pretty much been confirmed, which is Bucky doesn't, but Sam, Torres, and Carly all use iPhones, and Apple have a thing where a antagonist or a villain cannot use an Apple device because it reflects
Right.
badly on their company. So any villain in any project always uses an Android product, and Sharon uses an Android phone, and then in this episode we see her talking to, I think his character's name is George something, the guy who he was in the first episode and Sam beats him up and he's in the
Yeah.
helicopter. Who was in Winter Soldier as well. She's on the phone to him, and she's like, "I've got a mission for you. I'll pay you double." And then he comes up, he's like, "My only mission is to kill the Falcon." So it's like she isn't how she
Yeah.
seems, kind of thing. That's the theory. And then I'm willing to bet she is going to sort of turn around and be the power broker, like the main sort of overarching antagonist for
All right.
future stories with these characters.
Fair. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
just sort of expecting it to be like, John Walker's going to go crazy town, and then everyone's going to have to team up to take him down.
Yeah.
He's a threat to everyone. That's just what I was sort of leaning towards, but I don't really consider Sharon. To be fair, the way that she's such like a, I don't want to say a non-factor, but like obviously she does something that's important to the story, but in terms of like screen time and what she does on screen, she's a bit of a non-factor in that regard. So I was sort of a bit suspicious why they'd bring back her character and that actress and stuff, but then give her relatively little screen time unless there was going to be some kind of twist at some point. So yeah, that theory does kind of seem to be checking out.
In the comic, she's Agent 13. That's her shield name. And then the character Contessa something or other who speaks to John Walker and his wife and is like, right, the best thing you can do is answer the phone when I call. Like after he's been told you're not Captain America, and the call how she gives the wife a card and there's nothing on it. Like she just seemed a bit odd in general. She is Agent 14, and in the comics she is, depending on what story you read, she is a shield agent who infiltrates Hydra and becomes essentially like, she becomes a Madam Hydra. So she becomes very, very senior, but she is a double agent and is working for Shield. And then she takes on another personality. I can't remember what it is, but it's like a anti-hero, maybe leaning towards villain kind of role. But she was the character who they were like, oh, there's a big cameo coming. And that's who the cameo was, this character who I'd never heard of, so I had to do some Googling after the episode. But yeah, like I'm excited to see where they go for this. And then the fact that Loki is coming out in June now, June 11th, I think, has been confirmed for season 2
Really?
already.
Jeez.
It's not even aired and it's confirmed for season 2. So then people were like, well, why has Falcon Winter Soldier not been confirmed? Because it's so popular. I think
It's a trailer for another one.
At the end of next episode, boom. No, I think at the end of next episode, the names Falcon and Winter Soldier will not be those characters anymore. Because in the comics, Torres takes up the mantle of Falcon. Sam takes on the mantle of Captain America, and
White Wolf,
Bucky, I think, has been established as White Wolf now. So I think if they do another show with the characters, it will be Captain America and the White Wolf or something
different. I did wonder that. I was
It'll
like,
be named.
because I did wonder, like obviously people were saying like, oh, why isn't it called Captain America and the Winter Soldier if he gave the shield to Sam? I was like, well, obviously he's not going to use it because the title of the show is The Falcon, not Captain America. And then
I think there might be a sort of thing at the end, the very end of the episode, like with the Mandalorian, they had coming in 2022, the Book of Boba Fett. I feel like with this, they'll have like coming in 2023 or something, Captain America and the White Wolf, something like that. I think that would be really cool, like a really cool way to say these are the characters going forward. Yeah.
But
anyway, I feel like people are probably getting a bit bored of just my face now. So
let's wrap
should we
up
wrap
because
up?
it's time for my dinner. Yeah.
Oh, very exciting. Anyway, right. Thank you for watching. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Elliot will make sure to fully charge.
This is
his
short
batteries in
notice. I'm
future.
not going to accept any criticism for this.
But yeah, thank you for watching. If you've got any comments and topics you'd like us to discuss, then let us know in the comments down below. And yeah, I've been George. He's been Elliot. I'm sure he is
Yeah.
waving, but you just can't see. And we will see you in the next one.
Goodbye,
Goodbye.
treasured viewer.